Apple had WWDC 2024 keynote speech yesterday where they introduced all their new software initiatives for all of their different operating systems and stuff like that. And I noticed, as I notice and you notice every year, Apple borrowed some features from other platforms, other devices. And I thought we could get into the 6 that really kind of stuck out to me that I thought were worth just mentioning. There's no Apple hate here. It's always interesting how they say, here's this thing, and they've given it a new name, and they think they call it, they act like it's theirs, don't they? They act like it's theirs. Anyway, here we go. Number 1, we have Insight, I-N, the capital I, capital, or little n, capital S, I-G-H-T. Amazon basically has the same feature. The feature is being able to see the actor who's on screen and click through and see some of their filmography or their bio or something like that. And that's always pretty cool. Amazon X-Ray has had this for many years right now, and while I do have some problems with Amazon's X-Ray, how it just gives this really generic bio that doesn't really say very much, and it's not the greatest feature in the world, it was there first, and so I have to give it credit for that. Apple TV, it also only does this on Apple TV Plus shows, whereas Amazon, I think it's pretty much system-wide that they have this X-ray feature. So that was pretty interesting. The one difference between the Apple Insight and X-Ray is that Apple Insight will identify the song that is playing in the background from the soundtrack and give you the option to click a little plus button and add it to your iTunes, not Apple Music library. That's number 1. Number 2 comes from Vision Pro, VisionOS 2. And this is like this thing where you go like this and you open up the home page, and then you can go like that to close it, or you turn your hand over and you go like this and you open up like you open up the control center, stuff like that. That's a gesture that has been on the Meta VR products for a while. So Apple, I don't know did they give it a name? I don't remember them giving it a specific name, but Vision Pro now has Meta's feature for hiding and revealing the home screen app icons. Ever since I went full-time doing content creation, I've struggled really hard to keep myself organized. I've tried time blocking, I've tried to-do lists, I've tried everything that I could possibly think of, and to date, none of them have really worked. Recently, the folks at Sunsama got in touch with me and said, hey, do you want to try our planning calendar thingy? And I was like, sure, yeah. So they said, well, we'll sponsor a little video for you. And I have to say, I started using it, and it has been really, really great. In a lot of ways because of the way it does daily planning. It is a to-do list, but it's connected to your calendar. You can move things around. You can set weekly objectives, so you can kind of get an overview of what it is that you want to get done or need to get done that week. It does time boxing as well. Like I said, I've tried all of these different techniques, all in succession. And this is the first time that I've had all of these techniques for time management and productivity in one place where I can use all of them in one app. Not only that, but you can connect your Notion, your Google Calendar, your Slack channels, your all kinds of different stuff so that you can share what you're working on or keep everything that you're working on from different places together at the same time. Try Sunsama today. You can get a free 30-day trial with the code that I've got here in my video, and you don't even have to put in a credit card or anything like that. Thanks so much to Sunsama for sponsoring this portion of the video, and now back to the action. Number 3, and I found this just kind of mind-boggling that it wasn't already a feature. Granted, I don't use Apple Mail as much as I use Gmail, so I can't really say one way or the other, but now Apple Mail has categorized sorting, so you've got like updates and regular inbox and promotions and those kinds of things, which, let me see, Gmail introduced this feature in 2013. I think we can all do math. That was 11 years ago or so. Apple's even using the same categories that Gmail automatically kind of sorts your stuff into. And again, it's always just the not really saying anything about the fact that they borrowed it from somewhere else that kind of just, it makes me smile, because Apple's just, I don't know. Next up, and this one's kind of a joke, but kind of not, is the calculator app for iPad. iPad has been around for a long time, and for some reason, I don't know why, maybe they've just been trolling us all this time. People start to complain, and they think, well, we'll teach them to complain about the calculator app and just not give them one. But lo, all these years later, iPad being a very mature device, the iPad Pro's getting the M4 chip, which is, no other Apple product has at this point. And they still didn't have a calculator. Now, iPadOS will have a calculator. And not only that, but you can use it to also solve handwritten math problems and that kind of thing, which is kind of cool, I guess. I guess maybe I could see a practical use for it, but I do know that that's a feature that kids will use to not learn math. And that's maybe something that iPadOS has a calculator app now. Next up, other feature that Apple has co-opted for themselves without giving due credit to the places where it came from. You can bring your iPhone screen onto your Mac desktop, interact with it like it's your iPhone, and even, get your notifications and things like that, and right there on the computer, which is cool. And you don't even have to have the phone like right next to you. You can do it. But this is not the first device that has offered mirroring as something that you could do. Mirroring with Samsung phones and PCs has been a feature for a while, and there have been all kinds of different ways that this could be done with Android phones for quite a while. And so iPhone mirroring is going to be a good feature. If you're a Mac user and an iPhone user, then you're in really good shape. It'll be, I think, a very cool feature. However, Apple did not sort of come up with this. And if you only watched Apple keynote addresses to get your information about features, then you would be left to think, hey, Apple's really firing on all cylinders here. They're coming up with some great ideas. And yeah, that's what. It's a great idea to have the feature, but they didn't come up with it. Number 5, macOS window mapping or snapping or whatever you want to call it. This has been a feature in Windows since Windows 7. And I thought, man, that is so cool that you can do that, because my windows are always all over the place, and it'd just be great and it snaps open, and then the other thing can go over it. I can't wait until Apple puts that in macOS. And now they finally have. There have been apps that offered great functionality and features like Magnet and Better Snap Tool, and probably some others out there, but those are the two that I've used to get the snap feature and window mapping where things go features for a long time. So now Apple has kind of made those second-party, third-party apps obsolete and put the snapping feature inside of macOS. I don't remember when Windows 7 came out, but it was a long time ago. And now finally, I left this one for last, number 6, because it is the one that has been the most head-scratching, other than maybe the calculator on the iPad, but the most head-scratching of all the features that Apple has refused to bring to their devices, and that would be app mobility in iOS. Now, we got widgets in iOS, a couple of versions of that was great. We got the app library for iOS, which I actually really like using the app library in iOS, because then I can just have the apps that I use most of the time where I need them to be. But you could not move the apps around in space. They would always snap to some arrangement. And if you've ever tried to put an app on the end of one line and then it goes over to the previous page, or so much frustration over the years with the app arrangements on iOS, that now you can move them freely around the home screen. And I loved how Craig Federighi described it. He said, now you can sort of arrange it around your wallpaper, and he had a picture of his dog, I suppose, and he sort of put the apps around his dog so his dog's face wasn't obscured. And I just thought to myself, like, Craig has been with Apple for many a moon. And I wonder how you could deliver this with a straight face. But he's the guy who soldiered on through failed Face ID demos and keynote speeches of the past. Craig is a soldier. He's an Apple soldier, and he just went for it, and without a crack and a smile. So yeah, you can move apps around on the iOS home pages now. You can even move whole lines of apps from, just grab them all and move them down so that they go across the bottom instead of the top. Apple has finally given us the freedom to move our apps wherever we might want to. And, we are no longer stuck to a grid. You had a grid. And it was a very efficient system, and it led to, I guess, a sort of cleanliness to the operating system, if not sterility, that rigidity that made the iPhone and iOS so not fun, but yet practical. I'm glad that Apple users finally get all of these features. This is fantastic. Apple users will finally be able to come into the 2010s and use some of these features like calculators and window snapping and all of this stuff. They'll be able to move their apps willy-nilly around the screen, just like they always wanted to. But there's a tinge of sadness, because now Apple is slowly, year after year, capitulating to the idea that other companies and other operating systems had ideas that Apple didn't have, that Apple now has decided that they want to have. It is a net gain for the user, but on some level it gives Apple a little bit of egg all over its face. What do you think? Is this Apple sort of capitulating to customer demands instead of sticking with their UX guns? Or does it matter at all? Or do you wish it would stay the same? Oh, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because that's what people do. And I'm going to be covering a lot more in detail about a lot of the changes that Apple is making in a lot of these operating systems, because they are extensive. And I didn't even touch on Apple Intelligence, which, that's, again, the gall of Apple to take AI and decide to call it Apple Intelligence. I don't know. It's the most Apple thing that Apple could do. Until the next time, I'm out.